Tuning in to the online broadcast network, AfterBuzz TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment. AfterBuzz TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing aftershows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows, interviewing celebrities and showrunners, and bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Nice. We're going to hear a little Gerald Albright. Did I say that right?
Albright, yeah.
That's some smooth jazz right there.
That's my
Y'all love that coming in? Yeah. What's going on, everyone? I'm your host, Cortez G. West, and you're tuning in right now to another episode of Spotlight On with AfterBuzz TV. I have someone that I've actually admired and taken in as my father. He don't even know this, but I've taken it as my father just watching him on television. But a great actor and director, Mr. William Allen Young. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Good to be here, Cortez.
I'm so glad I was able to get you in here, man.
Yeah.
I really thank you for taking the time to come over and sit with us.
Oh, not at all, man. This is a joy. Where else would I be but AfterBuzz?
Exactly. Now we got to get you on something like Dancing with the Stars. Would you do that? would you
I would do that. At my high school, I was voted the best dancer.
Well, there you go. So now you going to win that trophy over there. Then.
Well, you know, I might get up there and trip up, but yeah, I wouldn't turn it down.
That's a lot of training I heard about that over there, man. So we're gonna get into some things right now. We're glad to see you back on film right now on television, on the TV screen with Cold Black on CBS.
Yeah.
We want to take it back a little bit before we get into that.
Okay.
Let's start to the beginning of your career. I know you actually played in a movie, Lock Up.
Yeah.
1989.
Yeah.
No, was it 89? I want to make 1989.
Yeah, 1989.
You may not remember it. But your career started way before that, right?
Yeah. I was at the USC School of Drama.
Okay.
And I signed a contract with agents while I was there, and my first job I got within 3 weeks.
Wow.
And I played Muhammad Ali's son in a miniseries called Freedom Road.
Okay.
And because it was Muhammad, it just got so much press, and that literally just shot me from anonymity at USC to cover of Jet Magazine, Ebony Magazine, TV Guide, and it just started to spiral from there. And it was beautiful because when you jump started with that kind of project first, everything else that follows, if you don't fall on your face, you're already riding a big wave, and it just kept going for me.
So with Lock Up, starred Sylvester Stallone and John Amos. How was it working with Sylvester, though?
That was a big thing for me because the agents told me, said, now remember, you with Sly, so if we do this right, this is really going to be great for your career. And I didn't know what to expect. I didn't talk to anybody who had worked with him before, and he truly was a megastar, superstar.
At that time, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And so when I got there, I basically said, let me just figure him out in as quick a time as possible, because as soon as we get on the set, we've got to really hit the ground running. And he was cool. Sly was as cool as anybody I've ever worked with. Very gracious, very giving, asked me how I wanted to play the character.
Okay.
And it was great working with him, man. And the project did well, at the box office. So again, the wave got bigger and bigger, just kept going.
So another show that I grew up watching, even before I came to the States, I enjoyed watching Moesha. You picked Frank Mitchell on Moesha, man. You was America's father, man. It was almost like Family Matters type.
Oh yeah.
But so with Frank Mitchell, you was on there as the father of singer Brandy Norwood. That was actually Moesha. How was that working with her, man?
Oh man, it was wonderful. I knew the show was created at CBS, and I knew that when we first met, this was going to be a great ride. When I first drove onto the studio lot, walked onto the sound stage, and I see the table set up there, and I see this small figure just running toward me in silhouette. And as she got closer, I recognized her as Brandy, and she was shouting, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy!" Ran all the way up to me, jumped up into my arms, and just said, "Oh, Daddy, so glad you're here." And that just let me know that Brandy and I, or B as we call her, B and I were going to have a great reputation. And if that was working, everything else was working. Because I already knew Cheryl Lee Ralph and met everybody else. But 7 years we ran with that, and that's a long time.
That was one of my favorite shows, man. I actually have a clip that I like when you got you got Brandy a gift when she was old enough to get it. Let's check that out right now.
Yeah, she turned me down, right?
1 second, I get it.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, what a show.
This is one of my clips here, man. Loved it.
Gotcha, Mo. Fooled you with the funk.
I hope you like the color, baby.
Oh, snap.
And you still sound the same way.
Oh, my goodness. Leather seats. Oh,
Yeah, Lamont Bentley.
Right now in this bad.
Well, the only way you're going to get behind the wheel of this car is if you open up a valet parking service at the high school.
That was my scene. I like that scene because for me, you know, I didn't have that communication with my father.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you really, it was like you talked to Brandy. You didn't make this. It wasn't about how certain directors these days, when they're trying to be real with, I guess you can say, lives of black lives.
Absolutely.
They try to make it seem like it's about whooping and being on your children and things of that nature, which I don't, you know, saying that's not a bad thing, but the way you handled her as a parent on the show was like amazing to me.
And you know what, Cortez, I think that probably 50-60% of all of the letters that we got thousands of letters, spoke to that. It's just the level of respect and love that we had in the household when things went down. I was a tough dad, but we did talk about it. And because of that, you can pull out several scenes over the course of the series where Brandy and I were actually talking to each other. And I didn't lose my position as father. She didn't lose her position as child. But I listened to her. And it was because of that we were able to work it out. And we ran into some really tough situations on the show. But in every one, the writers made it so that we taught people watching that audiences can work it out no matter how bad it is. And of course, I never whooped her on the show, but you know, that was the way we dealt with it, no matter what the situation was. So to me, I learned a lot because my wife and I have two sons, and our children were very, very small at the time. So I was taking my notes off of what I was doing with Brandy on the show as Frank Mitchell. And a lot of that I applied in helping raise my own sons. And so my wife and I really, really grew from the show as well.
Because you weren't like you needed to me, I didn't feel like you needed to get a belt or had to whoop her or whoop them or anything like that. You were stern with just what you said, you know, because and I like how they kept it real sometimes because, you know, she did get out of hand. She did step overboard a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
But
and that was her nature. She was a hard-headed kid.
Yeah, and you brought it right back.
Yes.
You brought it right back.
And the thing that I like about it too, Cortez, was I could still be myself. I mean, you know, it wasn't like in the conversation I became putty. No, he was a tough man, tough but loving father. So he held his ground, but he was dealing with a hard-headed daughter as well. So somehow he realized to diffuse this, he had to listen to her. She helped him be the father he was as much as he helped her to grow into the mature woman she became.
Right, because man, that show right now, I'm just thinking about because I actually was watching clips as we confirmed the interview, and I was like, man, I think I just want to watch the whole series. Let me just watch every episode. Do you ever go back and watch episodes?
I have every episode. I think we did like 150 of them, and every episode was different, and yet you get lost in each one because there was a message that was so important in each separate episode. And for the writers to be that good to bring it in for every episode, oh man, it was beautiful to be a part of it. But even when I step back as an audience, like you said, and you're watching it, I realized how important that series was and the whole scheme of television, period, but certainly about African American families and making a statement about the culture and the sensitivity and how we do it. It's beautiful.
So how's the relationship now with them now?
Oh, great. You mean with like Brandy?
With Brandy and Cheryl.
Oh, man, it's great. Brandy and I worked together actually down in Atlanta doing The Game for BET.
Okay.
And Shirley Ralph, I just finished doing a interview session for a show that is focused on her. I can't talk about it right now. But talk to Cheryl, and she's married to the senator from Pennsylvania. Oh, nice. So she's back and forth here and there. But yeah, all of them, everybody on the show. We lost Lamont Bentley on the show. And, you know, that was unfortunate. Yvette Wilson we lost from the show. But just a beautiful... When I go back and look at it, Cortez, it's almost like watching my second family. So those we miss, I feel that. But the joy of doing every one of those episodes comes back instantly when I'm watching it.
So like now with that situation, it's funny when you were telling me about how Brandy was on set.
Yeah.
I recently just did her new shoot. She has a new single.
That's
out,
right.
And she did the video shoot for it last week, and I'm in the video. And she was so bubbly on stage on set. She's just amazing. So I can tell how she was there.
Oh man,
she's consistent. And I like that. She's original. She's gonna stay that way.
Absolutely,
she's consistent with that.
And that's the way you can do a show that long without losing it.
Yeah. So going way back, let's go before even Lock Up. Let's go to the beginning in 1970s. You started, right? Yeah. So what made you start to get into acting in the beginning?
Well, actually, when I was 13 at middle school, I had an experience that changed my life, and my mother and father had divorced, and I was just at that rite of passage age, so it was just difficult for me being a boy and trying to figure out, so what am I good at? What's my identity? And in my high school, in my junior high school, there was a moment where I had to sign up for an elective. And while I was waiting in the auditorium to sign up for the elective, students came in to audition for the school play, which was called Young Souls. And I watched these students who I knew audition for this play, and while I saw them up there, it was like they transformed into people I didn't know at all. And it was like watching a magic trick. So I had two questions. Do that again, and can you teach me how to do that? And one after one, they did it. And finally, Mr. Crumb said, are you going to audition? Because he didn't know what I was doing there. And I got up there and I did a poem that my mother taught me, and I got a part in the play. I played Paul. That was it. And once I did the first performance, it was over. I was looking for something, and it hit me at the time I was looking for. So every play that the middle school did, every play the high school did, on into college, every play I was just sort of sharpening the craft. And then finally, when I got the nod to sign with the agents and did Freedom Road with Muhammad Ali, that just led to everything else after that. Half-hour sitcoms, television series, movies of the week, mini-series were big back then, feature films, and it's just never stopped.
Because it was a lot. When I was doing my research, man, I was like, this man has premiered and featured and starred and everything.
New York, and even a stage, which I love. That's my passion. Doing theater in New York, doing it here in L.A. I was in Russia, throughout Europe. I was in South Africa filming. So it's taken me all over the world. And the beauty of it was I wasn't even looking for that. I was just looking for that thing that happened to me when I was on stage. This thing that I couldn't explain, but at least it just spoke to my soul. And then I found out because of that, I was traveling around the world doing it. That was a side action. I can't say there was anything wrong with that.
That speaks to me now. I've actually gone through that one before I got here, especially with AfterBuzz. Thanks for taking me on. Like once I found that I knew I was naturally doing something good. It wasn't about the money.
That's right.
It wasn't about the being known and who I am and that kind of thing. It was because I enjoyed doing what I do.
This is it, man. It speaks to your soul.
Yes, most definitely. So I've read something that your mother influenced. Is that correct? Did she influence you to really get into acting, or something happened?
Well, my mother is one of my biggest inspirations, and one of the things that she inspired me to do was the education piece. My mother and father didn't understand my desire to be an actor. I mean, we were just the type of family that we didn't have much. So you wanted your kids to grow up and just get a good job that you could retire from, get good benefits, take care of your family. That was it. And that wasn't uncommon in the community. So when I wanted to go towards the performing arts, they didn't understand it. I think they were a little concerned, but the one thing that they didn't do is they didn't stop me. And I think that really has to be the message for parents who don't understand that artistic route that their child is taking. Don't stop it. They may find out that they hit a brick wall and they're tired of it, or it wasn't their way, but just don't stop it. My mother always encouraged me to be the best. That was the lesson that to this very day not only lives in me, but my wife and I talk to our sons about that. Whatever you want to do, be all in. If you're going for it, you don't want to sit down later on saying, I failed at something I didn't even put my all into it.
Correct.
Man, that's hard. So if you're going to succeed or fail, either way, just be all in. So my mother said, if you're going to be an actor, be the best. So I looked at Sidney Poitier. So I looked at the great actors of the time, especially those who looked like me. And I thought, that's my benchmark. That's the yardstick right
Sydney,
there.
when I look at you, I look at Sydney.
Man.
I feel like I'm looking at Sydney.
Oh man! And even if I don't get there, that's the benchmark, right? That's the rabbit on the track that you're constantly chasing. So when James Earl Jones hit, I watched him. I just watched it. Ossie Davis, Ruby Dee, the Negro Ensemble Company. All of those folks that were doing it at a level that I said, don't brag at all ever, but certainly not until you get there. And so the one thing that was beautiful for me is I had the templates.
Yeah.
What I had to do is to do the work to try to get to it. And back then, and I'm hoping it's still true with serious artists, you had to do the work in the dark, rehearse, practice, work with the best,
Yes.
iron sharpening iron. And then at some point you'll look across and you'll see the people right and left of you at your level that you used to look up to and admire, and you think, I'm getting closer, I'm getting closer. That's what happened to me. I always had people to gauge where I was because those are the ones that set the tone for me.
So you're born in D.C., but you moved to South Central.
In the rhythm section, right in Watts.
Man, that is a totally different.
Yeah.
How was that growing up in South Central, though, and then trying to do acting and things of that nature? Like,
You were the unicorn.
Okay.
It's just in our school, the teachers always used to ask us when we'd come back from summer vacation, so what do you want to be? And I remember Mr. Wooden in his biology class, he said, all right, everybody, let's go around the room alphabetically. I'm young, so I'm at the end. And he said, everybody raise your hand and tell us what you want to be. And it was just to motivate us. It was, it was right after the Watts riots. It was during the human rights struggles. So I think that people of color in the community were trying to at least start motivating young people to say what they wanted to be, voice it. Everybody went after the standard stuff. Wanted to be a plumber, wanted to be a doctor, wanted to be a dentist and all of that. And I heard all that and I raised my hand and said, I want to be an actor. I was a unicorn.
and you knew you wanted to be an actor in school.
Oh, yeah. Well, at that point, where I was in high school, so I had already started in middle school.
Oh,
so
wow.
I knew at that point, my passion, I didn't know how I was going to get there, but that's what I want to be. You asked me, that's my answer. And people would laugh, except for a few people. Everybody laughed because they didn't believe that from where we were, which was right in the heart of Watts, you could get to such lofty places. Now you could maybe be a janitor, you could be a dentist, you'd be a doctor if you were, but you were like the rare person.
But especially what was going on around that time.
Oh,
too.
absolutely,
South Central
man.
was crazy, even worse than what people think it is now. But
The challenge was to remain focused in the midst of walking the streets, so that when I started studying music and I was playing the string bass, I used to carry that bass home through drug-infested, gang-infested territory sometimes. But the funny thing about it is everybody left you alone if they sensed that you were serious about what you're doing. Athletes who would come home in uniform, nobody bothered them. Musicians who, nobody ever ripped off my string bass, though it was worth thousands of dollars. There was a code of ethic in the community that those who were serious and dedicated, even those who weren't, had a respect, a reverence even for them. So even as a kid, they saw that he's doing that thing, leave him alone. And that's what saved me. And I spent a lot of time at school in the theater, sweeping the floors, mopping the floors, painting sets. That was my commitment. But it was also my sanctuary. Because for a young black boy, it was difficult to not get lured into the 3 or 4 different avenues that somebody else was choosing for you.
Correct.
And I wasn't going out like that. So I just had to make sure I stayed in my sanctuary as long as I could. And when I was out in the streets, everybody understood, leave him alone. He's going after that acting thing.
so even after all of that, how was the audition process for you lately? I mean, even after working with Muhammad Ali, and then now you're moving on forward. How was your audition process with that? Like,
Well,
was
you know what?
hard?
It got better over time. I mean, when you're just starting out, you're going in with everybody else, and you see the people who are going for those rare, isolated shots at parts where there's only 2 or 3 of them, and you think, man, one day I'm going to be up there. Right. And eventually it got better and better. There were fewer people in the room, which means that in the attrition rate, producers, directors, and casting directors and network folks and studio people were saying, he's still in the room. We want him in the room.
Yeah.
So then it just got shorter and shorter. So it got to the point where I was doing screen tests where they'd only call in 3 of us. And that's when I knew I'm one of the 3. So, and actors that were very, very talented were falling by the wayside. So since that was the case, I developed a philosophy that said, I just want to be one of the ones still standing when the dust settles.
Yeah.
So it had to do with longevity. I just didn't want to act in a few parts. I wanted a whole career. I wanted a body of work later on that I could turn back and look to and say, wow. I could talk about the quality of the work, but I also want to just acknowledge the fact that I'm still one of the few standing in my category. And in that category, you have the Joe Mortons and you have people. Everybody's good. You had to be good. But beyond that, you had to have tenacity and persistence and all that other stuff that meant that you would still be in the game, even when times got tough.
So when did the directing start?
Directing started actually on Moesha. Now, before that, I was directing on stage, but that was my first television gig. And it was worked into my contract that, as well as starring on the show, I would direct a number of episodes. Okay. But it didn't let me off the hook for acting. So every episode I directed, I was acting in. So I'd be in wardrobe, I'd be in makeup, and I'd be over there with my assistant director, and we'd be talking, and the technical director, talking about how I wanted the scene. Once it was set up and we were ready to go, I would run around on the set with everybody else, and Brandy would be there, and I'd say, everybody ready? And I'd point to my assistant director, and he would set it up, and I'd yell, action. From the set. And if I had the first line, I'd yell, action, wait, and I'd deliver the first line. And after it was over, he would yell, cut. I'd run around, I would take a look at it, I'd say, let's go again. It was wonderful. I didn't think about how difficult it was until after it was over. Man, it was as beautiful as it could be because of Brandy and everybody else in the cast. They were pulling for me. There was such love between us. It was just whatever I needed to learn in terms of directing cameras. I directed 4 camera units. It was a multi-camera gig. I learned from everybody on the crew, and the cast were so patient with me that really was the way for me to learn it.
So you haven't done it without you actually acting in it? Like, have you just done directing for
television?
Well,
I moved from there, and then I started directing, the Parkers.
The Parkers.
The Parkers was next. And while I was over at the Parkers, I was just directing, but I knew everybody on the Parkers.
Yeah.
And
But
the Parkers was a spinoff.
In there too.
Yeah. And so I guest starred in episodes of that as well. And then to Nickelodeon, and from that point on, I just felt the comfort of working with cast and with multi-camera crews, and it was just beautiful after that. And after that was independent projects, and most of them that were my own, and now the documentary on my mother. So directing, I started off perfectly with the right crew and the right cast, and when I branched away from that, everything else had been set.
So with you not directing that about your mother, the story of your mother, when are we looking forward to seeing that? Is it going to be something that's on television or something that we just have to...
No, there's no distribution deal or anything. I actually started out Cortez just as it's just a labor of love. My mother is a senior, and she has an incredible life. And when I kept listening to her stories, and finally I was at a point where I was an actor, director, and a mature man, I thought, at some point I have to stop and capture my mother's story. I had no motivation for where it was going after that. I didn't know. I just knew that I needed to get a crew together and some cameras and audio, and we needed to sit her down first. We did 12 hours of interview. Wow. Just nonstop, capturing the story first. And then from that, I figured out my B-roll stuff and where I had to go to get the rest of it, how much of it would be dramatizations, who I'd have to cast to play her as a child. And so all of that happened without any end game in mind. And so as I've been doing it and looking at the footage, I'm just thinking, this is good. What am I going to do with this? and as we speak, we're still trying to figure it out. It's going to be about an hour long, and we'll just see what happens after that.
And then let's say, for instance, let's say, because that's what you want. You would like a distribution deal, right?
Yeah, I think that the story is worthy of it. You know, when you're doing a subject, obviously, that everybody knows, and there's already buzz about it, it's a lot easier. But when you're doing somebody who you love and you think that it's a great story, it's about selling somebody else on the idea.
And that was my question. So how have you already thought about that process? Like how? getting that out for us to say, well, I want to see that.
Yeah. Well, what I'm doing now is from the footage, we're going to put together a sizzle on it.
Okay.
And then just sort of shop it around because I need to see if there is interest for any of the studios, any of the networks.
Right.
There may be interest enough for me to actually blow it up from my original concept of doing just a documentary to making it literally scripted. And in that case, I've actually worked on the scripted version if I just did it truly with somebody else playing her role. So right now I approach it as a documentary, but the documentary can be the basis. It can be the start of something bigger. But I need to know what producers, what networks, if I'm going TV, what studios think about it, even independent studios. And if there's some nibbles there, then I may expand this because it truly is deserving. Then I start looking at people who would play my mother, you know, and then it gets really, really exciting. But I would need to know if there's enough of that going. And I may even finance it myself. Or at least started that one.
Yeah, I've actually seen and have met some directors who have actually fun things themselves.
Yeah.
But let's go back a bit about to your music side. I actually have the privilege of actually seeing you, not even without any cameras, no television, no production, no directors or nothing, but a good mutual friend of ours, Anthony Ponther, great conductor, composer, contractor.
Southeast Symphony.
Southeast Symphony. He actually narrated two of the plays, and one of my favorites was The Soldier's Tale.
Oh, yeah.
By Igor. I could never pronounce his last name. Let's try Stravinsky.
Yes.
See? Stravinsky.
Yeah,
well, and
what
then
an experience.
Yes, you did the other one, the Lincoln Portrait. That was the most recent one. Are you going to do anything else with them?
I've done another one with them a couple of years ago. I played King, and there was a piece that had been written that featured his voice. And I do a pretty good King, Dr. King, and because of that, they wanted something where when people close their eyes, you literally got goosebumps because you felt that you were listening to an incarnation of Dr. King. That I got goosebumps when I was doing it because when you put it to a full orchestra, that piece was so powerful. And we did it a few years on Dr. King's birthday, and if not on his birthday, and sometimes both during Black History Month. So we've done that one. We did the Lincoln Portrait and then The Soldier's Tale. I just love the performance with the orchestra because the orchestra, these are professionals, top-notch professionals, but the compositions lend themselves to narration and orchestration, and you get those right at the same time. It is so powerful. It's so moving. So we're supposed to do another one, I know, next year, and there may be something at the end of this year.
At the end of this year, I hope so. We got. I definitely enjoy to hear your voice just along with the orchestra. I'm just like, oh man, and you're like one of those people that actually helped me a lot with wanting to know what I wanted to do within my career because I come from wanting to be in front of the camera on the red carpet. I did all those things, but until I found what I really wanted to do, which was radio, is where I wanted to be. You know, people always tell me, I love your voice, or you should talk, or you should do that. So now I'm like, okay, radio is the thing for me. And just to go and watch you without any production or directing or anything of that nature, and you just to watch you, like I was listening to the orchestra, but I was watching you because you were in it. You're like you were all the way in it. And I was like, that's me. I love that. So right now, but you're doing, I'm gonna pronounce this correctly, Dr. Rollie Guthrie. I did not want to say Rollie or Rollie. Rollie Guthrie on CBS, Cold Black. That show, man, I watched the intro to that show, and I was just like, that is amazing.
Is that powerful or what?
I have some questions for you, but right now we're gonna watch this short clip.
Okay.
And we're gonna make sure that I get the right questions I want to ask you out. I really want to know how the directing is throughout this.
Can we talk while we're looking at this?
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah. This is a show that is a difficult one to direct. And hopefully I'll get a shot at directing this one. But it's one of those ones, we shoot 3 cameras. It is so frenetic and intense that we established on the pilot the look that we wanted. And the look that we wanted was based on an actual documentary that was shot called Code Black. And the documentary was nominated for an Academy Award. And in the documentary, there was this sense of, wow, you're on a roller coaster ride. They liked it so much that the network said, we want to do this series, but we want it to look like the documentary. So we shoot 3 cameras. They roll all the time while we're shooting. And if you notice from the show, you literally are taken into the center stage where we are. So it gets bloody. It gets into the camera crew, camera operators are sometimes right over our shoulders, right near the surgery with the heart pumping, the blood squirting out. So with that, it means that the cast has to be ready to work almost side by side constantly with this crew.
Yeah.
And the crew has to be in there with the actors, and the cameras have to fight for space sometimes. And the person who is the ringmaster to all of the madness is the director, who has to decide what those camera angles are going to be. And it is amazing for me to watch, and very instructive for me to watch the directors who have come in and done it. So we have some of the greatest directors in the business, but we platoon them. So it's not just one director. I'm watching all of them and taking notes. So if I get a shot to direct, I know how difficult a show it is, but I know exactly what our executive producers are looking for and exactly what the network is looking for.
Because there's one scene where you're holding something, but it seemed like you could not move.
Yeah.
But it was like almost 30-some people around you.
Oh man, try
like, how is that
300.
possible to?
Oh man,
how is that possible to shoot a scene with so much going on?
Yeah, it's tough, Cortez. I mean, it's one of the most difficult ones that I've seen from a directing standpoint to direct, because generally you're not dealing with that many people. Generally, you're not dealing with such overlapping dialogue and action and movement and terminology that you have to get. So the editors are handed a ton of stuff that we've shot. And the only thing more difficult than directing and shooting this, I think, is actually editing it and putting it together. Oh, it's tough.
So cold black, from my research, cold black is an ER term for not having enough, for a emergency room that doesn't have the enough manpower, the capacity, or the room, or anything to operate what they need to do their job effectively.
Yeah. And with patients who are literally dying.
Exactly. So if you don't have all the equipment you need, like, what kind of team is that?
Yeah.
Like, so.
And that's the feeling that we have to capture, that the audience has to feel like anybody can go any minute, because it's life and death. But in that life and death, there are only a few of us that are in that room to try to save all those people. So when people watch what we call center stage, which is when we have 4 or 5 beds side by side, all of those people are so critical they can die any minute. And since we don't have time to dissect and separate and give space, we're literally crawling over each other to try to get to the patients. We're throwing bags across the room with insulin in it. Everything happens in such a way that when it's edited together, each story still makes sense. Each patient on each bed has a story. But when we're shooting it, it just seems like organized chaos, and sometimes unorganized chaos.
So what's your role as Dr. Guthrie?
So Dr. Guthrie, each one of the characters in the show has a position, and some of those positions are by rank. So you have the 4 interns who have just graduated from medical school, and now they are coming to do their 3 years of internship. And you can go at different hospitals. They have chosen, or they've been selected, to come to Angels Memorial. Angels Memorial is the worst of the worst in terms of the number of patients we get, but the best of the best in terms of the training you get. So just above their head are the attendings. We teach the interns coming in, and it's tough love. So the interns, I play Rollie Guthrie, who's the senior intern, in that he's been there longer than any of the others. Then you have Marsha Gay Harden, who plays Leanne, who is the chief teaching attendant. Okay. So she's the one who brings them in, and she plays, her nickname on the show is Daddy. So she's tough as well. Raza Jaffrey is the other attending, and Raza has a specialty in surgical medicine. So my role on the show is, they call me Dr. Wisdom. I am the character who pretty much is the calm in the center of the storm. Okay. He's written to be the wisest, the most calm and settled senior on the staff. So when the stuff swirls around him, he can never lose his position, because the whole show will lose its balance.
Yeah, because I've watched some of your scenes, and you do talk calm. I just noticed that. Yeah, you're very like...
Yeah, and the interns go to different ones of us based on what they need.
Yeah.
They come to Dr. Guthrie to be that wise father figure that they don't have at that moment.
Now, is this show based off of an actual ER room that operates like that?
Absolutely, and that's what a lot of people don't know. So our show is actually patterned off of the original ER trauma center at LA County Hospital downtown here, which was the worst of the worst. So There are not a whole lot of ER trauma centers in America. So those that operate in large urban cities, Chicago, New York, Philadelphia. Well, the one in Los Angeles was the one that had more code blacks during the year than any other ones. It says at the beginning of the show, the average code black days for the average trauma ER center in America was five or six. That's what they average. We averaged more than 300 here in LA. Now they've since closed LA County, but that's what the documentary was based on. They took cameras into LA County ER Trauma Center and they filmed real action and put it together into that documentary. Our show was based on that ER Trauma Center. In fact, Cortez, when we shot the pilot, we shot it. And we got permission to do it at the closed hospital. Okay. So we went in, dressed it up, and we dressed it up with the advice of all of the people who were our technical experts who worked there. They said, no, this is not right. We had this here. So they put it back together exactly the way it was. We went in there and shot it that way. And then when we found out we were going to become a series, they had people go in with cameras and to film every inch of that place. They did aerial views of every inch. And then what they did was we shoot at Disney Studios in Burbank. Okay. They took 2 sound stages. One is the largest sound stage on the Disney lots where they shot Mary Poppins. And they recreated...
Wait, which Mary Poppins?
The original. Good one. But they recreated the entire ER trauma center down in East LA because we couldn't shoot there. We knew we couldn't shoot the series there. Okay. But they wanted that look. We had established that as Angels Memorial. So we now shoot at Angels Memorial, which is on 2 sound stages at Disney Studio. And it looks exactly to the tape, to the lettering, exactly like what we shot.
And that's how it should be. So what was how did it get to you? How did that role get to you? Did you audition for it, or was it you like say, hey, I think you would be good for this?
I did a screen test, and I was under contract to Disney doing a show that they had called Good Luck Charlie, which is no longer in the air, but I played Mr. Wentz on that show. So the casting people, the producers, the network knew me. And then I got a call from my agent saying that they're interested in you coming down to test for this role. They sent it to me. I took a look at it. I was only in 5 pages before the phone rang again. And they said, Will, before you decide yes or no, we want you to look at a documentary and the trailer for the documentary. And that's for the first time when I saw the Code Black documentary. And I thought, Cortez, if they would let us get away with doing what I saw in that documentary, I thought we will revolutionize medical dramas on TV.
But how was that? Okay, so who is doing the blood, the heart? Because I saw one scene when a young lady was pregnant. Oh, yeah. And like we actually see her cut. Like all this.
How we have some of the best special effects makeup artists in the business, bar none. If you look at their track record, The Terminator and shows like that, they're the best. They've done a lot of the special effects makeup that you've seen on blockbuster movies. And so what they knew was that if we were going to replicate something to make people truly believe this is real, and we're not doing just cut fingers and Band-Aids, they had to bring in the best, and you had to pay for it. But that's Steve and his crew. They do full bodies that replicate anatomically correct to actors that are going to be on the show, and they do body casts of the actors. And what they do is they do the entire internal organs, and those internal organs move. They beat. They spurt blood if they have to. They're decayed if they need to be. There's a lot of money that's put into this show just on the special effects makeup. Because if you don't have that, you don't have the ER Trauma Center.
I'm just thinking that as an actor, like if I didn't like a lot of blood, or if like how would I get over it? Because I mean, just looking at it on television, I'm like, that's too real.
Well, they sent us to medical boot camp, and I think that's when they were kind of watching to see if we could handle that stuff. Nobody fainted.
Oh man. So, I mean, was it easy for you? Was boot camp easy for you though? show?
It was easy in that sense. The blood
Okay.
didn't bother me, but what was challenging was literally the terminology. Every episode, we're given a vocabulary list that we have to learn, understand what it means, because it has to come out of our mouth as if we know what we're talking about. Split-second decisions. But the harder thing was actually learning all of the medical procedures we were going to need to know to do that show.
And the terminology.
Yo, man. When we were working on dummies, but anatomically correct dummies, and a lot of those dummies had internal organs intact that we had to work with. The procedures that we learned and the length of time we were spent in 2 medical boot camps was more than an EMT goes through to pass to get their license. More than an EMT. So we didn't become certified doctors, but the amount of procedures that and then we had to shadow real doctors at the new ER Trauma Center downtown. And while we were shadowing them, we were there when real patients were coming in, and a couple of them died while we were there. So we went through everything, even the calling of the death, the time, and everybody taking off the gloves and walking away, and we see in the body with the blood there, and somebody has to come in now and clean it up and prepare it. We were there for all of it, and the network insisted on it. And it was almost, to me, that was our litmus test. If you can go through all of that, then when we shoot, it's nothing but a replication of the same thing. But we got a chance to talk to those doctors and nurses after they walked away from that and said.
So one of our engineer that's engineering us right now, Marissa, she knows one of the characters that's on your show. Are they coming to you, like asking you for advice? You know, are they some of these people that this is their first time, their first show or first gig they've ever had? And have you ever
you
talked
mean
to
actors
any?
on the show? Oh, yeah. But everybody is really good on the show. Now, the only thing that they may lack is the longevity, the experience of doing lots of things, because a few of them haven't done very much on their resume yet, but they will.
Yeah, now, right?
Yeah, there are moments when we have scenes, we all kind of trust each other, and we look at each other. In this business, one of the things that I enjoy, Cortez, and I certainly hoped I would after this much time in the body of work, is a respect. There aren't too many actors especially young actors, who don't know who I am. Yeah. And so whether I work with them or whether I meet them in other situations other than being on the set, they do constantly ask, as I did, the seniors that I respected, advice, business side, and then creative side. So the same thing with Code Black. The great group of actors. It's a wonderful cast. And when we're on the set and we have scenes, there's that look. We hug. I dap everybody after the scene because it's an affirmation that, yeah, that's it.
Good job.
That's it. That's how we do it. And we're all sharpening each other's iron. And I think Disney took so long to put this cast together. They really needed to know that everybody could cut it, because this is a very powerful series. Yeah. They wanted to break new ground, and to break new ground, you've got to have actors who can break that ground for you.
Most definitely, because I mean, just watching the trailer sometimes, I'm thinking to myself, like, is this really in the hospital like this?
Oh, man.
And for you to confirm that, I'm flabbergasted.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So is there a season 2 coming on? Do we know that yet?
We're going to find out pretty soon.
Okay, I hope so.
We certainly hope so. And, all you can do is do a great season 1 and hope that the audience, that it resonates with them. And then basically the network just takes everything, puts it on the table. I've heard very encouraging news, but, you wait until you
have to wait.
Yeah. But it certainly deserves, I believe, a season 2. And in a season 2, I'm sure that we have great writers on the show. Michael Seitzman's the executive producer. They're writing now ideas and, in expectation that we'll get a second shot. And the characters are just going to branch out and expand, and they're going to explore lots of things that we didn't get a chance to explore season 1. Season 1 was more about the medicine. Season 2 is going to be more about the characters.
That is one show that I feel like it can continue to go. Like it can
Yeah.
There's so many aspects that they can talk about, because at this point it can go into your personal lives maybe,
yes,
and go back into the hospital and then get certain things, you know what I'm saying? So there's different ways you can take this show. But there you guys have it, man. Code Black, Wednesdays, 10 p.m. Central. I've actually said that people are like, well, I waited till 10 o'clock and I missed it.
That's it.
Well,
That's it,
Central
man.
people on CBS, all right? That's every Wednesday, okay? Thank you, Mr. Williams, for coming and talk to me, man.
Cortez, a pleasure, brother.
This was amazing.
Thank you.
I've learned a lot. I'm going to actually go and tell some friends on how to get that career off the ground, maybe, man. I feel empowered, should I say. Maybe we can have you back, man.
Anytime.
And I can
Love
maybe
what you do.
call some people over there at Dance with the Stars and get Mr.
He's
Williams
gonna
up
make
there.
it happen. Yeah, I get my dancing shoes ready.
There you go, man. Well, tell the people, can they find you on any social media or any websites or anything?
God, my social media is actually handled by my son, and William A. Young. At William A. Young, I believe is my my Twitter. I have Twitter. I have Instagram. I have Facebook and Instagram. Did I say Instagram?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but before that, though, is there any projects we looking forward though?
Well, I'm finishing the documentary on my mother's life. I'm also writing the second draft of a feature film that's based on my life.
Okay.
And right now it's in that stage where there's interest, and so now I'm on a second draft, and hopefully by the end of this year, it'll be purchased and we can begin the process. Now I want to direct it, so we'll just see if that's a deal breaker or not. But it's based on my life, and again, the one thing that's so beautiful about it, when you work on something you're passionate about, you're working 24/7. So.
That's always, because I'm working 24/7 myself right now. Well, there you have it, guys. This was a great interview. I definitely enjoyed myself. Thanks for tuning in. I'm your host, Cortez G. West. You can follow me on all social media handles as Cortez G. West. Make sure you also subscribe to our channel, rate us top 5. That's AfterBuzz TV. Simple as that. There you go. Rate us 5. Give us 5 ratings. Let's keep this going, all right?
All that.
Thank you, people. Have a good one.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not